Hello everyone, this is Trevor with Mando Deck Tech, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 8 decks from the Birmingham UK Premier event that happened this last Saturday. Now, what we're going to see is a very healthy meta. I do have all 8 of those deck lists that we'll be going over, but if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, as we're going to be going and showing more and more tournament lists and deck lists as we get ready for the new PQ season, which starts up in January. Now, this is a graph I saw floating around Twitter, and what I thought was very interesting, I wanted to share, is to show how healthy the meta is for this event. We have over 200 players, and if you look, we have 28 Anakins, 23 Jangos, and then just a whole lot of other decks that had all strong finishes. I thought it was very cool to see, getting rid of Boba was absolutely the right call by FFG, because now people are excited. They're showing up to tournaments with new lists, new ideas, and a new meta. So it's very, very exciting to see. So without further ado, let's take a look at our top 8. So this is our top 8 players. Like I said, there was 201 players. And if we take a look, I've got how many wins they had here. Now, our first place player, I'm not going to say the names because I'm Southern and I am horrible at pronunciation, so I don't want to murder anybody's names. But we have a Sabine list here. Alessandro, we'll try that one. He was the only undefeated with 8 wins. Good job there, and I love his deck. We'll be showing that one today as well. It's a very clean list. Next, we have a 7-win Bosk Blue. Now, I do know that is Thork, who is a pretty awesome YouTuber. If you haven't followed his channel, you totally should. After that, we have a couple of players that were really, really strong. Emperor Palpatine players finishing 3rd and 4th with 7 wins. I mean, these are the players that had 1 loss throughout the whole day. Both of those decks are very different. They're actually, one's blue, one's yellow. After that, we finished with Jango Fett in 5th, Cad Bane in 6th, Sabine Wren in 7th, and then another Jango in 8th. So 2 Sabines and 2 Jangos did make the top 8. Now, the thing that I find very interesting is that the most represented hero today leader was Anakin, and not a single one of them hit top 8. Now, there was a lot on the bubble. There were many that did really, really well. I just think this was a day that while Anakin Blue is a very strong deck, and Anakin Yellow, but particularly Blue, I think the meta day was ready for Anakin. So let's take a look here as we go to the 8th place finisher. This is our Jango Fett list. This is a very similar list that we've seen. Not a lot of crazy changes in this deck. This is basically the Jango Tarkin Town space deck that we've been seeing a good bit. One thing that I did notice that a lot of the European players is that they put Crafty Smuggler in. I haven't seen that in a lot of the deck list, but that is an evolution that we're seeing. Crafty Smuggler is very, very strong with Jango's ability, being able to hit a unit twice and being able to use the combat damage to use Jango's ability to tap. He's very, very good just to kind of hold the tempo on the ground. One thing I thought that was very interesting that we didn't see in some of the other space decks is they are playing 1 Interceptor, 1 TIE Advanced main, which is really, really good with Triple Dark Raid. It gives you something to go snag. It gives you some utility. I like the tool belt of that, being able to use TIE Advanced to pump up your 7th Fleet Defender, your Lurking TIE. And also sometimes the Imperial Interceptor is just really, really good against particularly the mirror match. So very, very strong. I thought this was interesting that he did have Waylay, 1 main, 1 Vambrace main, and then he had more on the sideboard. The bottom 10 cards you're going to be seeing at the bottom list, these are the sideboards. So the Bazine, the Disable Fang Fighter, and below, those as the sideboard. But pretty standard Jango deck. I think if we're getting ready for big tournaments and PQs, things coming up, this is definitely a deck we should be playtesting against. Next, we're going to take a look at a Sabine list. Sabine Yellow, which is very interesting. That this deck continues to be really, really strong in the meta. Again, we see here is Crafty Smuggler and L3. I love the fact that they're playing 2 shielded units on turn 1. This is becoming kind of a ping meta with Jango and Quinlan Voss kind of showing up in a lot of places. So this deck is really protecting itself from getting nuked on Tarkin Town on turn 1. So I like that a lot. It has a very, very strong curve. And what I love about this deck, too, is it did use Sabine Wren, the new Sabine. So we have the 2-drop and the 4-drop. But I love the fact that it got Sneak Attack in. I'd love to see an after-action report to see how well Sneak Attack came in. People are still, I think, sleeping on Sneak Attack. It's a really, really good card and can help you close out some games. Interestingly enough, I thought on this deck was that he was not running the Wing Leader main, and he just had the 1 on the side. It's not a full Rebel list, but I just thought it was an interesting call to just put it in the side. Moving on to the sixth place finisher here, Cad Bane. There was a whole lot of Cad Banes at the top tables. I watched some of the streams today, and Cad Bane definitely made his appearance known. What I think is interesting here is we're finally getting to see, and now there are two of them deck do really, really well, being able to drop like a turn one Crafty Smuggler or Bazine, some type of underworld, and then being able to spin that off a next turn and dropping. Now there are two of them to bring out Zuckuss or Bosk is extremely strong. Another thing that we're seeing this deck do is use Jabba the Hutt to go find. Now there are two of them to try to will out a later game Cad Bane, or is extremely, extremely strong. One thing that I think is very interesting is talking about being ready for like an Anakin meta. If you look, they had Bamboozle main. While this is off color, they can use the alternate casting of this card to discard a yellow card for it to play for free. That is definitely a meta call and extremely cool. It is also a trick that can be gotten by Jabba. So I love that there's a lot of toolboxes, abilities to kind of go things that you want to get. Now there are two of them, Waylay and Bamboozle, also Surprise Strike, are all tricks that Jabba can go and get. Very, very strong deck. One of the things that I loved about the sideboard of this is Zero the Hutt. The thing that we have not seen that in play a good bit, but reading over this card, I can just see it being a really, really good tempo play of being able to drop this and being able to exhaust a unit, kind of maybe steal the Django action away from a Django player. I think it's really, really strong. Moving on to our fifth place, another Django deck. This one is pretty similar to the one we saw before. One thing that's interesting about this one is it was running a Confederate Tri-Fighter main, just one of those, to kind of help in the control meta, which I think is a really good call, particularly in Europe. Europe generally has a lot more control in its tournaments than we see here in the States. So I think running a Confederate Tri-Fighter main sounds like that was a pretty good play. Again, we've got sneak attacks in here as well. Really, really cool deck list, but similar to the one we saw earlier. And then rounding out the top four. Now, Howard here, or Howie, I saw him stream. He was featured on one of the live streams that I watched, and he played this deck extremely well. This is your typical, Palp blue list. The big changes that I would see coming into this format right now is Perilous Position. Perilous Position is turning into one of the most powerful cards in the new set, particularly for control. We're seeing that card all over a lot of different deck lists, and it really, really helps against the Django meta because it drops a lot of their ships. It also does some really cool things whenever someone's trying to bring out their Anakin for that big alpha strike. You can use Perilous Position not just to make them smaller, but also to exhaust him, to kind of disrupt whatever play they're about to pull off. So this is a very, very strong deck. I still think Palpatine is probably one of those harder decks to play, and it's one that you have to have the mental fortitude to play long matches throughout the whole day, but it is an absolute powerhouse of a deck, and watching this played was really, really cool to see in the meta. Now here we have another take on Palpatine. Now this is yellow, and this is another deck that we've been seeing float around a good bit. I love the Change of Heart Emperor Palpatine combo. It's an extremely powerful combo to be able to snag your opponent's unit, attack with it, and then sacrifice it with Palpatine is extremely good. The thing that I also found interesting about this deck is the Cobb Vanth. We have been seeing that in different takes. I do like the fact that he can be sacrificed to go get something. It's all about creating value. Now, this player, Joshua Freeman Birch, I believe this is the guy who's known for playing decks over 50 cards. And if I'm counting this correctly, we have another deck over 50 cards. This is kind of this person's MO, and I find it very interesting that he just believes what he believes and does his own math and does extremely well with it. So tip of the cap to you for playing a deck a little off kilter and doing extremely well with it. All right. Again, this is Thork's deck. He's a YouTuber. You should definitely follow his channel if you haven't already. Bosk Blue. I did get to see him play this on a live stream as well. Extremely good. Bosk Blue is a very good deck. I think people are sleeping on Bosk Blue. Everyone gets all excited about all the new toys that we got in the new set and forget that Bosk Blue is still a premier control deck. Has very, very good play into the meta. The thing that I find very interesting about this is he plays 3 Power of the Dark Side and 3 Merciless Contest, which basically is like playing 6 Power of the Dark Sides. I think that is very good. He's playing 3 Super Laser Blast main. He is really leaning hard and just playing his big bombs late. He's going to win with Avenger, with Snoke, with Big Palpatine. and maybe he even mill you out of cards because he's running the 3 vigilances with the restock. This is an extremely good deck. Again, you've got to have the mental fortitude to play long rounds. So after 8 rounds of Swiss, you're going to need to find a good bar and drink and, and rest up for the next day. But congrats to him for going 7-1 with Bosk. All right, so finally we have our undefeated list today. Sabine ran. Everyone was like, well, now that Boba's gone, Sabine's going to run rampant. And, we have seen Sabine have some success. Today this deck went 8-0, but it wasn't like half the field is Sabine or anything. So Sabine can still be really, really good. This is one of the cleanest lists I've seen for any Sabine deck. Anytime you see mostly 3 ofs and just like 1, 2 of, that is a deck that is very tuned to do one thing. It knows what it's wanting to try to do, and it is not getting off of that plan, and that's what we see here. The one thing that I do find interesting is the 3 Bright Hopes. That is definitely a great meta call with the Django Space meta that we're seeing right now. But this is a very strong deck. 3 Metal Ceremonies, 3 Rebel Assaults, 3 Four Calls I believe in. I mean, this is an extremely good it's an extremely good Sabine deck. I think it's interesting that we have Admiral Yularen in there as a 3-drop. So that's one I have not seen in the Sabine list, but I do see the idea behind it. Make you guys a little bit beefier. Maybe that helps against the ping meta. He also has a little bit of Restore in case you're up against other aggro decks. I think that's an interesting call. Another thing that's interesting about this is the Dark Sabers are in the sideboard. I guess he brings that in once he knows the coast is clear, and he can surprise people with the Dark Saber in games 2 and 3. The other thing that's interesting here is that Fighters for Freedom did not make the main deck. He's only got 2 in the board. Of course, U-Wings are in the sideboard as well for those big, long, drawn-out control matchups, and I'm guessing looking at the meta, he probably sided those in a good bit throughout the day. So this is the top 8, so congrats to the players that made top 8. I love the fact of how diverse it was. I am excited to see how this new meta continues to evolve as we move forward and get ready for the new PQ season, which starts in January. If you've been listening this whole time, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Until next time, we'll catch you later. Bye.